Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to speak a little bit about disputing today. Obviously, disputing is such a big and important part of OCD recovery, right? You know, it's the main core premise of breaking down your irrational beliefs and changing your perception on your core fears to bring them down from being really sort of catastrophized to a more rational outlook, right? And just looking back on my recovery journey, I definitely went wrong in some areas with my disputing, and I just wanted to share those with you today and potentially identify any areas where you may be going wrong. So, with my disputing, what I definitely did wrong was I would write out my belief on paper, right? And what I would do was after that is instead of just reading it like two or three times as you should do, I'd be reading it over and over again in my head multiple times, you know. So for example, say when I had my fear, I'd write down the belief I shouldn't be anxious, right? That would be the belief that I dispute. Then I'd say, well, there's no universal law that I shouldn't be anxious. If I really shouldn't be anxious, then it'd be impossible to be so. But what I'd do was that belief bit there that I dispute, I'd read that over and over again, multiple occasions, right? Just so it could try and sink in, just so I could really grasp it and understand it. But obviously that's super compulsive, you know, you can't force your perspectives, you can't just expect it to sink in that moment. And you know, when you write your beliefs out like that, reading over it a couple of times is fine, but yeah, like I just said there, when you're trying to just make it sink in, it's just not going to happen. It's like when you're revising for a test, right? Revising for an exam, you just want that information to sink in that moment, but that's not necessarily going to happen. It's going to take a little bit of time, lots of learnings, and lots of persistence. So yeah, you just need to be careful with that. Write your beliefs out, fine. Dispute, fine, but don't be rereading it too many times because that's super compulsive. That's something that I've definitely done when I was really suffering with fear. I just wanted to accept that anxiety right there and then, but that's just not the case. That's not going to happen. It's obviously a gradual process. When you've been very scared of anxiety for a long time and you really want it to go, it's just not gonna budge in that moment, and you're not going to be able to see it for what it is in that moment. It's going to take a bit of work, so yeah, just be careful with that. What else would I do? Yes, so I, with my disputing, I would get sort of into the habit of just parroting in my head about the universal law principle. So for example, as I just said there, when I used to dispute my beliefs, to say, for example, I should not be anxious, and you know, you then follow that by saying, well, in what way can this belief be falsified? And then you'd say, well, there's no universal law that says that I shouldn't be anxious. What I do was there is that I just parrot that over and over again, and I wouldn't really understand what it meant. I just try to sort of use that answer to the belief as a way to just be rid. But when you really sort of see that for what it is, right, the universal law, obviously it's a big part of Albert Ellis's teachings, right? So by that, he means that if there was a universal law that you shouldn't be anxious, right, then it would be impossible to be anxious. It would be impossible for anybody to have ever existed in all periods across all time to not be anxious. But that's obviously not the case because millions of people have anxiety, you know, like loads of people have OCD. And when I think you're disputing your beliefs and you want to sort of verify or disprove your beliefs, we can just get a bit guilty. We can just be guilty of just writing out there's no universal law to support this belief, etc., and without really knowing what it means. So with that, like when you speak about the universal law, it basically means that there isn't any universal law, because the only way that would be true is if it would be absolutely impossible for your core fear to come true. But you know, scientifically speaking, like what's actually sort of transmuting in the physical world, millions of people have anxiety. You have anxiety. You might have anxiety. And yeah, it's a real possibility that, you got a brain, you're neurotic, and this can happen. So yeah, but just when you write out your beliefs and you use the whole universal law thing, just be careful that you're not just sort of mindlessly reading that over and over again, and you actually understand what that means, because I think that's really important. And then finally, what I'd also do is would when I was disputing my beliefs of an evening, right? So for me personally, I'd do my beliefs of an evening. So I'd finish my day, and then I'd make like half an hour just before I went to bed to do my disputing, right? So what I did was that that wasn't really beneficial to me, and something that you should be made aware of in case you're doing it too, is when I'd be writing out my beliefs, right? I'd write it out really, really fast. Say like I had a really sort of bad day with anxiety or my core fears with OCD, right? I'd get upstairs and I'd write out my beliefs quickly as I could, just to try and dispute it like frantically in that moment, which to essentially try and be rid of the discomfort, and to try and change my beliefs and perspectives in that moment. And obviously that's super compulsive. And when you're writing down your belief really, really fast, like it's saying that you just want it gone. It's saying that you want this. It's saying that you want your internal state, your beliefs, etc., to be changed right there in that moment. But obviously, that's not going to happen. It's a gradual process. So when you're like writing out your beliefs, I'd say just slow down a bit. Take it word by word. Don't scribble it out at 100 miles an hour just to try and get it all worked out in that second. Yeah, just slow down a bit. Take your time, and yeah, just read over it like gently, as I just said beforehand, and yeah, read it over 2 or 3 times, and that's it. What I also say as well is don't take any shortcuts. So where you can, each time you do disputing, write the belief down. Don't just read the belief that you wrote on another day. Don't just read that over again in your head again. No, actually write it down again. Maybe look at it from a different angle. Yeah, don't just take some shortcuts and don't write the belief out properly. And also where you can, like, make sure you address each element of the belief. So you might have a belief that I shouldn't be anxious, and then you might say, can this belief be falsified? Yes. And then you might say, well, how is that so? And then you might say, well, yeah, there's no reason why I shouldn't be anxious. The universe doesn't cater to my demands, etc., etc. So obviously write it out in stages. Make sure all the beliefs are covered. Don't take shortcuts. Don't just read over a belief that you might have written down 6 months ago. Just start from scratch each time. And yeah, I think that's really important. So cheers, and I'll see you on the next video.